Isn't it good? Up and down we go on the lighting. Very nice. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on Revelation TV. It is live. Thank you. It is live. It's not Memorex. Do you remember those days? Just to show you that we're live, you know, because things happen here in the studio. Can you lower the camera? Thank you. Oh, as I said, just to get into the picture. There you go. So one day we're going to get there. Christian television's going to grow up. Otherwise, I'm going to get younger. I threaten to get younger, just so I can live long enough to see it mature. Anyway, I want to welcome you to tonight's programme. If you want to email us, it's live at revelationtv.com. If you don't want to email us, forget it. I don't know why some of you watch the programme. There's 900 channels out to choose from. You can, unless you've got super glue stuck to your finger and the button on Revelation TV, we have to apologise. But please don't watch us if you don't like us. We only get 1 or 2 emails a day like that. Some people, honestly, there's now as queer as folk. That's what my mum used to say, and it doesn't mean you have to be gay to be queer. I wasn't saying that at all. There's now as funny as folk, and if you're northern, you'll understand what I'm saying. And I've got 2 lovely people from the north. Yes, they are lovely. The northerners, super. I don't know what happened to me when I came south, but I'm still here by the grace of God. You're lovely people in the south, you're just not very friendly. Anyway, Keith and Mary Harrison, all the way from Darlington.
Darlington, wherever.
Caring hands. Can you take me into your care?
Yes,
if you want.
Anybody.
Thank God for that. We're going to hear, you've been on the programme many months ago, probably even years now.
That's right.
Judging by both of us, we're getting older, Keith.
That's right.
How come your wife looks younger? No, all right, don't answer that. No, seriously, it's a serious subject. Working on the devil's doorstep is tonight's topic, and it's all about living and working just where the devil really is trying to cause as much havoc as he can. And, you know, just tell us a little bit about the ministry, both of you. Who'd like to start? I like that. It's unanimous. Mary, go ahead.
Well, we've been working with working girls on the streets of the Cleveland area for the last 5 to 6 years, and what we do is we befriend girls, and we get to know them, and what happens is we just become very good friends, and when the time comes and they want to continue the process of coming off drugs, we are there ready to catch them, and we take them into our home for a week, and we just love them, and we just care for them, because these girls have had horrific times in their lives that's led them into prostitution. And so they need a lot of love and care. And so our home is a time of just counselling and just love and care. And then when a week or to 10 days is up, we take them into a loving rehab. So we take them down south into a rehab, and that rehab looks after them for between a year and 5-6 years, whatever,
okay.
You know, however long it takes, but they become Christians within that time.
Okay, and we're going to find out more about what they have to go through and why they become Christians. Yes. It's not like you force them or anything.
No,
okay.
No.
I can see it's already stirred your emotions on both of you, and you're an unusual couple. Let me say this. I do know you from the past, and we'll find out a little bit about your past as well, because it's quite a contrast seeing Keith coming from the mafia basically to caring hands. I mean, you know, usually it's anything opposite to caring. But anyway, what we are going to do is have a look at a snippet of what Birgit has prepared for us on some of these statistics and reasons why people get into prostitution. We are live tonight on the 9th, as I said, and we are here for you. You'll be able to participate in the programme later on. Send in your questions on live@revelationtv.com on your emails, and your phone calls will take much later. But this is a lovely couple, and if you're not in tears by the end of the night, then you really need to switch stations and get a life. All right, so let's have a look at what Birgit had to say on this.
Good evening. We're just going to spend a few moments now looking at facts about prostitution in the UK. It's estimated that 80,000 people work as prostitutes in the UK, with up to 5,000 children being involved in prostitution at any time. The ratio of female prostitutes to male is 4:1. Up to 75% of women involved in prostitution were under the age of 18 when they started. Street prostitution is 10 times more dangerous than working in either houses or flats, and these women are at an increased risk of being victims of violent and sexual crime. It is estimated that 95% of women who work as prostitutes also have an addiction either to drugs or alcohol. And the primary reason given by 74% of women involved in prostitution is poverty and the need to support children and to pay household expenses. Well, there is a link between prostitution and drug use, so we'll spend a moment now looking at this. It is believed that some drug addicts, particularly those who are addicted to heroin and crack cocaine, obtain drugs through prostitution, and they either receive the drugs as payment in itself or they receive money in order to afford the substances. These prostitutes typically work on the street as opposed to working out of houses or flats or as an escort. And another reason is that brothels are evidently reluctant to employ visible drug users. There's a close link between street drug markets and prostitution, with street-level drug dealers also acting as pimps. Some prostitutes develop a drug habit before turning to sex work, and they finance the habit this way. Others begin use specifically to enable certain sex acts. It is believed that where prostitution and drugs are linked, that the prostitution becomes less predictable and more dangerous. Well, we're going back to the panel now for the rest of this evening's discussion.
Thank you, Birgit. Thank you very much indeed for preparing that. Some of the sort of stats and information probably readily available on Google or such places as that. But is that a fair appraisal, what Birgit's saying about prostitution and the related drug habits that feed this vicious cycle?
What happened, Howard, a year ago, we have always stood in the middle of the street, which was the designated area, or unofficial designated area. And by that we could see the girls who came and who didn't. Birgit said that that was more dangerous than being in houses. Well, a year ago we had a problem where the streets were closed down. That happened that the girls went underground, so we had to go around, and for the last year, from being actually in the middle of the beat, where the girls could come on the van and discuss and be counselled by Mary, they had disappeared. But we kept in touch, and those that wanted to come out, and we did do detox with them, which Mary's already explained.
Yeah, you're assuming our viewers know what you do on the streets.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Van. Okay,
I'm sorry.
So you've got to explain a little bit about what you do,
right.
What you normally do, what you did do, how it got closed down, and then how you re-established working on the Devil's Doorstep with this particular
basically,
Caring Hands.
Basically, what Mary and I do, and we're doing it again now, is we stood in the middle with the vehicle, with food, warm clothing in the winter, gloves and scarves and tights, and also food to take home with them. These girls are literally driven by drugs. I don't expect you to understand that drive, but they will take any risk. The drug is horrendous, and it will push anybody that's on a drug. There is some fallacies about drugs that people think they're heroin addicts. The dread of these girls of coming off heroin is not coming off heroin. It's coming off the effects that the heroin has their body, because the heroin passes through the body quite quickly. But the toxins that the heroin is actually mixed with attaches itself to the muscles and lymph glands. A heroin habit, when a heroin addict first starts, for the first 6 months, they don't really believe that they're hooked. Till one morning they wake up, and I'm sure people out there that know the drug thing will agree with me, with the worst dose of flu they've ever experienced, and they think they've got a dose of flu, but then they realise it's the withdrawal of the heroin. But what causes the problem is a toxin. So we have to address that, but what we actually do is stand in the middle of what is commonly known as the beat, which is the area, which is a designated area unofficially that the girls can work. Mary sits in the back and observes and deals with the girls, obviously, but we're mum and dad of these kids.
In what way does Mary deal with it?
Well, she feeds them and she counsels them, and she's there to listen to them. You're not going to go onto a street and get to know a girl. It'll take 2 years to get to know a girl, Howard. 2 years. Because
when you say get to know, you mean to get deep down inside,
yeah,
to get their
to know
trust.
the girl, to get their trust.
Right. And you this is a ministry. It's not that you're a pimp. I mean, I'm just trying to. No, I'm trying to paint the picture
that's
here.
right.
Seriously,
That's right.
that people would not understand just tuning
I
in.
see.
People
I
who've
see.
not seen you before
I understand
on
that.
Revelation
I understand
TV.
that.
Okay, so you're going out to befriend the girls working on the street,
That's right.
because God has given you a heart which is quite unique. Not many people, I've only ever read about this sort of ministry once before, when I think it was Floyd McClung wrote a book about him and his family who were working in the red light district in Amsterdam, and
right.
his book was entitled
Yes.
Living on the
Yes.
Devil's Doorstep. That's why I chose that subject matter, and yet he found it that the church generally was against them doing this.
Yes.
They didn't get any support initially, and they lived for years amongst the street girls.
That's right.
But eventually they started to come to know the Lord. Now,
Exactly.
just how long have you been doing this? Is this something you've been doing 5 minutes, a year, 10 years? How long? When did you start, Mary?
August 2000.
Okay, so it's 7 years in the
Yes,
making. This.
yes.
Okay, how long did it take you to establish a trust within the street girls?
Well, it took 2 to 3 years, really, to establish a real trust, because when we first went on the streets, each girl had a bet with each other to say, well, we believe that these are a Christian organisation, and they're going to be the same as any other Christian organisation, and they're going to ask us to listen to a sermon before they actually feed us. And what they'll eventually do is start to preach to them, which is what we've never done. What we do is to share the love of Christ, and that is in a practical way.
Right. You don't tell them
No.
about it.
If they ask us why we're there, we tell them. And we tell them, and if they ask us how, what is a Christian and how have we arrived to the place we are in our Christian faith, we tell them. And what amazes them is that we've been together as a couple for 30 years, and they can't understand that two people can have a relationship for that long a time. And that in itself is a testimony.
It is
but
indeed.
we just love the girls. The Lord has given us such a love for them.
How did that
we
start?
weep.
How did that start?
Well,
what broke you? I mean, let me just say that Mr. Keith Harrison there, Mr. Mafia of 1960. What changed you? What was your history? Just give a bit of your history and a bit of Mary's history. Then we can see how God has really done a miracle here between using you guys to reach out to those
I was born in the ghetto, and I believed that there was no way I was going to stay in the ghetto. And by the time I was 15, 16-year-old, I was quite... You serve an apprenticeship, but very briefly, it doesn't really matter. By the time I was 25, I was into everything. But I was basically legit. I've never been arrested in my life. And I can't go into things.
Okay, well, things that you can go into.
That's right.
Were you a perfect angel, or were you one of hell's angels?
I was what the organisation classes a money launderer.
A money launderer. Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Through...
Till they tumbled to you.
No, they never tumbled me.
Sorry, tumble dryer.
No, no, I see.
Anyway.
The police, oh, I see. Sorry.
Don't worry
The police, it's a legit business.
What
Totally
is?
legit business that I was in.
Laundering. Money.
Well,
Which police? Don't give out names. Anyway, the thing is, what I'm trying to show is
it was Christ. I'm Jewish, which is very difficult, because when I went to the governor and told him that I'd become a Christian and I can't do what I did, being Jewish is very difficult. And he says, well, go with my blessing, my boy, but you better be real. But Christ...
Which governor? Well,
the governor is the man that...
Oh, right, the head of the mafia.
Well, whatever you...
Oh, whatever you want to call
the
it.
mafia is...
Right.
It's American. It's silly. There's a lot of
Anyway,
TV. But the governor says, be real. But I knew there was a realness in mind. And I had wheeled and dealed, robbed and stealed. And like Zacharias, you have to give back. And he gives you a heart, but a love, and knowing Christ is the answer to every situation. As a Jew, Christ was a prophet. Good prophet at that, but he wasn't the Son of Man. But the Lord moved on me, and I couldn't explain it. And nobody can explain. Don't try and convince people. The only person that can prove Christ to you is you. Mm-hmm. And he changed me totally around. I went bankrupt, I went everything, but he gave me a love for people that...
But these are people that most people wouldn't even have anything to do with. Street girls, you love for your neighbour, love your neighbour as yourself, but you know, to love someone who, from a biblical point of view, is sinning every day.
Jesus loved a prostitute. I don't know why. Excuse me.
Wonderful.
We are not here to question why. We're just here to... We're unprofitable servants, Howard. Caring hands isn't Mary and Keith, it's God's. Yeah. It's the Lord's, and we're just minders of it. We're unprofitable servants.
Well, I hope our viewers are beginning to see. I'm trying to get underneath you. I'm getting under your skin, okay? So that people can see you. I know you, and I want people to understand where you're coming from. You're not two-by-night, fly-by-nights, and care knots and riding around in Rolls Royce and.
Well, the thing is, Howard, is that a lot of these children, and a lot of them are children, have come from very abusive backgrounds. And what people fail to realise is that the hurt that a young girl is covering up when she takes heroin is astronomical.
Like what, Mary?
Well,
what sort of hurts?
We listen to stories every week about the last girl that spoke to me just recently is that her foster dad had abused her at the age of 2. And I carried on abusing her till she was 15, and at the age of 15, when she protested, he put her out on the street, and she had to survive for herself. And that day she went into prostitution.
Can you blame her? I mean,
it's the only life she knew. Yeah. And Keith and I, although we very rarely talk about it, we've both come from abuse of some sort in our background. And God doesn't put anything on the rubbish heap. He uses every little thing in our life, what we think is a bad incident that happened in our life. He puts it to his glory. And he makes something good out of bad. And as I explained earlier, as I was talking with yourself, is that the tears of Christ that sheds on that street, there isn't a minute that goes past when Christ doesn't weep over these girls. And everybody that is living out there on the street, it's a hard life. And these girls, people think, well, they earn such a lot of money and they should be doing this and they should be doing that, or they shouldn't be doing it. Well, it's easy to judge, but they haven't had to live the life that girl's had to live.
So the picture I'm getting, tell me whether I'm going down the wrong path here, is that it appears to me that they're coming from broken lives in the first place and probably don't trust men. Then they start to take drugs and then get into prostitution.
That's right.
Is that the
Very often,
cycle?
that's. I mean, it's not 100% that way, but I would say 90% of that.
All right,
is
let
that
me add
way.
to it then. If they don't go that way round, do they get into the cycle of first then prostitution and probably feel really bad about themselves?
Well,
and then start to take drugs too?
Well, what happens very often is that they meet a man that becomes a boyfriend, and the boyfriend then introduces them to drugs, and then they go out on the street, or he tells them to go out on the street, and then they take drugs to give them the
reward.
Yeah,
Or to captivate them.
Yeah.
Hold them captive to slavery, really, isn't it?
Well, it is
Sex
really.
slave.
And so actually they are working to keep his habit at first, and then eventually they're on it as well.
Can I ask you, in all of the dealings that you have with looking after the girls in the street, do you ever get to meet these guys that are the pimps?
Yes, we
How do you feel about it?
We love them just the same.
Well, if the
They all
clients-
need
You
Christ.
cannot
Even
go,
the clients?
You cannot go on
Christ.
that street with any opinion. You cannot go out with anything. You got to fill that bus with Christ's love. You have no opinions. You have no agenda.
Even though you know scripture which says that, that not to be living that sort of lifestyle.
But they don't know any different.
But they don't know any different.
No, I'm questioning you because I know the sort of things that the viewers will be wanting to
As
ask
a Christian,
Yeah.
did I know what I know now as a non-Christian? But I refuse to get onto the bandwagon that I've got it right, and I forget me past. Things I look back at and I think, did I do that? These kids are not Christians. They are surviving in the enemy's world, and they are tremendous at surviving.
Okay, but how do the girls respond to you? Because you're quite unique. They must think you're nuts or that you're Superman, Superwoman.
No.
No.
Mary's
not at all.
the mum they didn't have, and I'm the dad
They should
didn't
have had.
They should have had.
So their past definitely has a big part to play in where they are now. So what about their future? How can you affect change?
You can't.
What do you mean
just
you
have
can't?
to stand and wait. You have to realise that you're not talking to a drug, you're talking to the person. And it takes a long time for that person to come from behind the drug.
Can you
because
give us
they
an
don't trust
example?
you. Pardon?
Give us an example, please.
Example was 2 years, we'll call Jill.
Okay.
There was on a £200 a day habit that eventually broke down. That's to be every girl. There's no, we're not getting girls coming at us every week. It's very slow, but every girl has a Damascus. Everybody has a Damascus experience. And that girl came to us on that Damascus experience. Do you know something? I don't have to discuss it with Mary, and Mary doesn't have to discuss it with me. I look across the back of the bus, because I stay separate. I look across the back of the bus, Mary looks at me and I look at her. When that girl asks to come out, and we know that we know, because we've known that girl for 2.5 years. She was 31 years old. At 15, 16-year-old, she went onto drugs on the street. She was totally drug-free. She came to us on a Saturday, and through proper medication. I'm not talking about this cold turkey. I don't believe in that. We have a doctor on the team with proper medication, and Mary with vitamins, and the love of Christ. He has to be there, and the peace of Christ in our home. By the Wednesday, she was totally drug-free, and said she'd never felt like that.
All right, that is unusual because the length of time to come off of those drugs is traditionally what? How long?
7 days.
That's traditional.
What is to us?
That is,
Yeah, no, but traditionally out there in the
We can't
real
talk
world.
for anybody
we
else.
can't talk for anybody else. It's 7 days.
But aren't there people who do this, can I say, for a living, who would take 3 to 6 months?
Yes.
But that's methadone.
Okay.
Well, even,
That-
even without.
So this is it, are you saying, am I hearing you right, that this is a little bit of a miracle that, within 7 days, or is it just
Yes.
something, is it your
Well-
particular method, not the dome?
No, it's the body. The drugs are made up of toxins as well as heroin. To take the drug to kill the toxins built up in the body flushes itself. Mary gives them. You've got to give them a clean opiate, a clean painkiller to stop the toxins. In 4 days, the body has cleansed itself with plenty of water and plenty of everything else, and it's cleansed itself of drugs.
Without using methadone,
Without using methadone.
which is the traditional method that the world uses.
But methadone is the worst thing to get off.
Why?
It's a nightmare.
Even the girls will say
Even the
that.
girls will turn around and say, I don't want to go on methadone. But it's the only thing. But what happens then, you've got methadone that puts heroin straight. So the girls or the people are taking methadone, and the government says that's the only way they can handle it. But then an arrestable charge in the way they dress doesn't go down very well, because their dress actually judges them before. And the Cleveland police are they get a lot of knocking, but they're the most brilliant people that we've ever worked with. And you have to work with the police, but not as what the girls will call a grass or as an informer. You have to keep everybody separate.
Okay, right, I'm going to get you back to this typical day.
Okay.
All right?
Right.
Just need to understand, paint the picture. We get up in the morning. It's a typical day, all right? Let's say you get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. How do you plan your day? What do you would normally go out? If you would go out in the van, you have to...
We do the shopping
Oh,
for
sorry.
everything's fresh for the girls, so we make sure that we have fresh food in for the bus that night.
So you got like a little kitchen on the bus?
No, we
it's at
do
home.
that at home.
Where does
So
the food
I make
come from then?
kind donations.
Oh,
Yeah, so
do you get a lot of that?
no.
Okay, I was just
But when you take them sandwiches out, the buns, they're in proper sandwich bags. You make the best sandwiches. You make a la carte sandwiches for them girls. And you know something? When we're on there, if we want a sandwich, we ask the girls' permission if we can have a sandwich.
You are so nice.
No,
You can come and
it's
live with us.
respect. It's respect.
It is. You are great,
Well,
honestly. But so you're making them
Yes,
food, pairing that.
that's
okay.
right, yes.
Then in the evening you go out with the band
Yes,
at about
yes.
what time?
We go out about 7 o'clock and we can be out there till about 12 o'clock.
So that
So
you're
according
parked.
what time the girls want us out there
You park in a
till.
particular area where
That's
people
right.
know you, and they come on the bus.
Yeah, the girls come
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they sit on it. It's their front room, you see, because we're actually invited onto the street by them. And so we have no right to dictate to them. This is their front room, and they crowd onto the bus and they put their arms right round us and they love us, and we love them. And then there's lots of chit-chat and laughter and tears, and then you'll find that some of them will hold back, and if they want to talk privately and they'll want to talk about a hurt or a want that they actually need something, or they need to be off the street if they're in a dangerous situation, or they're living in a dangerous environment and they want to talk to us about it. And this is how we get to know the girls. We get to know what makes their heart beat, and actually when we see the girls there, we don't just see a girl, we see their actual life. and what children they've got at home and what the children's needs are.
Okay.
And so we don't just deal with that child, that young girl. We deal with the whole family.
It's interesting, a Freudian slip there, I believe,
Sorry.
when you said that child. I think it is a child.
She
Because
is.
we're all children of
That's
God,
Yes.
okay, which is lovely. Now, okay, so they come onto the bus and they've learned to trust you. Some people might be watching now who would think, are you helping them to continue in their lifestyle and rather than to change away from that? What would you say to such criticism?
The love of Christ we take on that bus. Christ is the answer. Please believe me that all you folks out there, Christian folks out there, please, we're not some sort of, we are totally, we believe, and I believe, my wife and I believe that Christ is the answer to all the problems. But how would you present Christ? Do you present it in very clever words that don't mean a thing? Or do you present it in Christ's love? And by loving the unlovable. They don't understand the love, these girls. They really don't. But there's this love that's there, and it's tangible. And then they can trust. Because when we do take them in, one of the deals is, we'll come here and help you, but if you come across here, you want to come across here, you're coming onto outside the line, and we're coming across with all the regulations, you can't bring yourself or your lifestyle across here. The two fears the girls have, one is the detox pains, the next is stepping out in the unknown. And we can all understand that fear, unknown.
So how do you help them overcome both of those fears?
Because it's the gentle, it's the loving, and we take them into home.
Whose home?
In our home.
Right, okay, not a home,
No, our
just
home.
into your home.
And then we get them through it. Now, detox is very, very essential. And there's a lot of Christian street ministry out there. But the detox and rehab are two different things. And rehabs are more equipped to accept detox girls or drug addicts, or whether boy or girl, but we deal especially with girls. And that is... they come through the home. Quite often they don't want to really leave, do they? But then we take them 320 mile away, because it's no good detoxing somebody and putting them back in the same place they came from, because the scripture says, if you clean your house and you don't guard it or take it away, 7 more demons will come back and attack it. And that's what exactly happens when you take any, whether it be boy or girl, we deal with girls, and you get them clean of drugs. If you put them back in their situation, drug dealing is a business, and a very high business. Them drug dealers will come and give all the free gifts under the sun to get them back hooked. So then they have to go.
So how do you feel about them? I mean, you've got such a lot of love for the pimps, for the prostitutes, for the clients, and the police, and what about those who feed these girls
you respect it.
and keep them there?
You respect the person, not what they do, Howard.
Have you had any success with changing the lives of a drug dealer?
No, because God didn't send us to that. This is the girls.
If
Right.
a drug dealer came and asked us,
That's right.
we would, because some of the girls drug deal themselves.
That's right.
So the answer to your question is probably yes. Because, you know.
We're getting emails in. Bless you guys out there, and girls, of course. Hi, Howard says, I've been helping the street prostitutes for several years. This is from Mark. I found the most unhelpful people are religious Christians.
That's right.
We have ended up taking prostitutes into our remote homes so that they can get away from the pimps. We now live on an island in the UK. The girls get a fresh start. Many have turned around and gone on to holy lives. Thank you for this programme. Keep up the good work, Mark. P.S. These girls have something in common. All have been rejected and been given up by families. I'm sure you can relate to lots of what Mark's saying here. So
Yes.
religious Christians, useless?
No,
Sorry.
hang on.
All right, not quite useless.
It doesn't
Not much
matter.
help.
Even if a person's out on that street, we cannot criticise. God dealt with me with criticism, because, do you know something? Because I had 28 years combined in the drug job, I suddenly realised that I knew it all. I thought I knew it all, and God had to turn, and I was getting critical, Howard, and God had to turn around to me and say, hey, because any presence on that street of any, and I don't care if it's a religious base or anything, any presence on that street they'll observe. What I'd like to do is try and teach people maybe how to observe it correctly, how to work the job, because any presence is better than no presence at all, Howard.
Right.
So I am not going to come against anything,
Mary,
anybody.
You found that some the Christians don't quite have the right understanding or empathy or love, and perhaps are, too critical. I'm not trying to find a fault with Christians.
No.
I'm just trying to see. This is obviously something that Mark has come up against.
Well, there has been times when some Christians have come against the way that Keith and I work, because they believe that we should be preaching to the girls.
Right.
And they can't understand why we're not preaching to the girls, because they're lost. And yes, they are lost, and we've all been lost. But if you talk Japanese to a British person, they're not going to understand a word of it.
So if you speak Christianese, they're not going to
That's right.
relate.
And
okay.
so, but everybody can relate to the love of Christ.
Give us an example of one that has. I can think of one because you've been on this program, and tell us how it helped that person to change their life.
Well, that one person that you're on about, she didn't trust anybody when we first met her, and she was very, very suspicious. And in fact, she was one girl that did have the bet that we would start preaching. She was the one.
That's right.
And that one girl watched and watched and watched us, and eventually came closer and closer to the van and started to eat the food that we had on the van. And then eventually she was in such a situation where she was living in an attic with rats running over her, and she was desperate. And then it got to a point that she was in danger on the street through some of the punters, as you would call it.
Well, especially when you're thinking of what happened just recently.
That's right, exactly. And she was actually locked in a, I don't know if it was a vehicle, wasn't it?
No, she was locked away in a house, in a flat.
That's right, exactly, yes. And so this young girl came to us and asked us if we would help her get off the street. And we said, well, look, if you decide to come off the street, you have to turn your back to the street life and come our side of the line, as Keith. And I said, and that's a once and for all. And she was that desperate, she said, yes, please.
Okay, Keith, can you take the story on from here? What happened? How did she make the changes, and how difficult was it for her? And
it's not difficult in Christ. The thing is, it is putting them through the detox so they don't feel that horrendous pains.
Okay, but you're generalising again. What I need you to do is be specific in this one person's life. What happened now? She's to go on a detox, obviously.
That's right, she goes through that. Then she goes to the rehab, and the gentle work in the rehab of her going to meetings, but also going on a college. This rehab.
Was this a Christian rehab?
Oh, it's a Christian rehab.
Sorry. Look,
sorry.
Paint the picture.
Oh, sorry. It was a Christian rehab that believes that it's not all Bible study, but there's some, and it's a marvellous place. It finds the talents of these kids, and it puts them into college, and they become balanced. And like everybody else, like me or anybody else, Christ comes to them. And that's when it changes. And like everybody else, how do you explain salvation? I can't. And when people come to me and say, prove it, the only person that can prove it is the person that's asking me. We cannot. And
how successful has this been for this particular person?
Very
She's
successful.
been on this programme.
Yes, very successful.
Many
and
months.
And they're doing well. But you're not going to get 50 and 60 a week.
No, I know, but if one sinner turns back, and this is what delights me.
It's just staying there, hanging on there, waiting and waiting and waiting. and just loving them, continuously loving them, and then one will come up. But by loving them, you know them.
Right.
And when you get to know them, you'll know that they want to come out.
Okay, but how difficult or how easy was it for her? Did she have any challenges when she was
Yes,
going?
she did.
Right,
Of course she did.
Yes, she
tell us
did,
about it, because this is what makes the
Yeah, she
testimony
threw a
more
Bible
powerful,
against
really.
the wall and said, "Look, like, please show me. I don't understand what I'm trying to take in." But that's her testimony.
Yeah.
And then the Lord spoke to her in a gentle way and said, "Pick this up." And she opened the Bible and I can't remember the verse, encouraged her on. And it's a day-by-day encouragement. Because you're dealing with a brain that's killed. It takes 5 years for a drug addict to be totally free.
Why?
Because that is the system.
No, but what's the damage that's done?
The damage is the healing in the drug system.
Right, the
organ
brain
system,
The
cells?
memories as well.
the memories. And any
Yeah.
trigger, what you can say to one of these girls, that maybe it's just the slightest thing can trigger a memory of there and set them so far back.
Right.
So they have to be in a sound, balanced Christian community. And that works. We are blessed with the most marvellous rehab people, and they do not like to be advertised, so I cannot even say the name.
Right.
But and plus the fact we take these girls down to rehab, we don't put them on a train up in Darlington somewhere and
So
send
it's
them down.
holding hands.
That's
You're
right.
taking them
Yeah.
literally.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
holding them.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant ministry. I'll take my hat off to you.
No, it's God's ministry.
No, I know, but not
we-
many people would do it. And can I just say, there's an interesting email also that's coming. Can we have live at revelationtv.com up here? And also, I'm going to open up the phone lines. My goodness, is that the time? I can't believe it. If there's somebody out there tonight who wants to make a change in their life, please get in touch
Please,
with Mary and
please.
Keith. Or even call right now on the number that's going to come up on your screen.
Please.
0207 631 4446. The 9th of January is 10 to 10. And just here, dear Howard, this is from Dave, says, how can Revelation viewers help financially? Do your dear guests have a website, an email address so I can link that website to mine? Jesus had so much compassion for the thieves, the prostitutes, etc. Church, please wake up and support where Jesus walks, not in the holy huddles of church meetings. There is nothing wrong with church meetings to empower us to go out to minister to the lost. Jesus came to the sick, not the healthy, and to the unrighteous, not the righteous. I'm just
Amen.
adding that bit myself. And great. I want to announce to our viewers that we'd already made an arrangement some time ago that Revelation Foundation is going to help, and part of its tithes is going to go to Caring Hands.
Bless you.
But I mean, how difficult has it been, and where does the funds come from?
In this ministry, we have a small funding from the church. The church doesn't control Caring Hands. Our church is a lovely church. It doesn't control Caring Hands. We do what we say, but we've got a slight support from them. But basically, May and I have financed it ourselves. So anybody wanting to go into this ministry, be prepared not to be the most popular people, and it'll cost you more than finance as well, your time.
We do have some supporters
And we have
throughout
to-
the country and from Holland.
Can I thank them?
Yes, please do.
Right, our friends from Holland, and a mum, she knows who we're talking about, watches Revelation TV all the time, to Scotland, all the way down to our church and into England, and over to Hereford, and down into the south of England. I'm sorry I can't mention all your names, but you really know, because we're in contact on the telephone most of the time. God bless you and thank you for your support.
Right. Well, I want to ask Mary, how many millions a year in support do you get? Why are you laughing?
Is that pennies?
Seriously, no. How much do you get in support?
On a regular basis, £200 a month,
£200 a month.
which
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to increase because we are starting this month to support you.
bless you.
So that'll be part of our tithe from the viewers that are generous. There's a couple of ministries we want to go. Hey, hang on there, Keith. You won't. It's going to improve dramatically. I can trust me. By God's grace, it is, because this is a ministry that you've got to get behind, guys. And thank you so much for all your support that you do send in. Know that your support as well is going to go from Revelation Foundation to Caring Hands.
There's
And
no
it's going to
sal-
be direct as well. We'd
We
like
don't
that
take
from
a
the viewers.
salary out.
You don't
We
take a
There's
salary.
no
don't
salaries.
salary.
There's no nothing.
There's no nothing. But how much did it cost to operate? What sort of funding would you like? Like, in an ideal world, no, seriously, all right, you haven't got 20 staff or 1,000 staff, there's the two
There's
of you.
only me, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, in an ideal world, what would you think is realistically a level of support you'd like to get?
I
Well,
don't know.
We've just been blessed. Well, we haven't been blessed because we took it out on
You're
faith.
sick.
We have been blessed, but I've taken it out on faith with a brother that
Yeah.
supplied us with a vehicle, which we needed another vehicle because the last one was 5 years. But on an average, as you can imagine, the food, the fuel, the insurance, the tax, I maintain the vehicles
Well, even
myself.
the food. I mean, what would you like? 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month, 5,000 a month? What would you like? I'm going to pray that God's going to give you everything you need and more.
I tell you what we need for, and ask the people for, is what God knows we need,
Right.
not what Mary and I think we need.
All right.
God knows our needs.
Well, you certainly need a lot more than £200 a
yes,
month. Okay, well,
yes.
that's coming as
But
now
that is
by
a
God's grace.
blessing. That really is a blessing.
We got a first caller on the line.
Sorry.
Mrs. Chaplin.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Please speak to Mary and Keith. Go ahead.
Yes. I live in Cornwall, and would you be able to help anybody in the southwest here?
Okay.
I can't hear that.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's coming through in the speaker. What Mrs. Chapman's saying, she lives in Cornwall. Can you help anybody in the southeast, did you say?
Southwest.
Southwest, I was going to say.
In what way?
In what way?
Well, I've got a niece, and she has a lot of psychological problems, but it was through a brain injury, and in fact, she rang me tonight, and she just doesn't sleep, and I really think she needs a whole, therapy, really. And
Yes.
she's not getting any help.
Has she been on the streets like that?
No, she hasn't actually.
Okay.
In fact, she lives with her parents because
Right.
she couldn't cope on her own. She had her own house, but she's very much in need, and I'm wondering if your kind of ministry could reach out to her.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If you've taken the details of Keith and Mary
please.
and ring them tomorrow, give them a chance to get back to Darlington.
Thursday, because we won't be
Thursday.
back.
They won't be back in Darlington until Thursday, and that's in County Durham, which is the northeast, so it's a little bit diametrically opposed
But that doesn't
geographically.
matter if we
But
can help.
If they
Okay.
can help, they will,
Thank-
Mrs. Chaplin.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, and we'll
Thank
pray
you. God
for you.
bless you.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
God bless you. love.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're willing to take other callers as well. And if you want to contact Keith and Mary direct, you can, and support them directly as well. But also prayer as well. But let's have prayer with action. You know, faith without works is dead, said old
We need
James.
prayer, Howard. We need the covering of prayer protection on that street. It's a
Well, we want-
violent
yeah.
street.
Now, I can remember that there was a time when you told me, I think it was yourselves, when the girls were watching this program we
That's
used to
right.
do in the middle of the night.
That's
and
right.
sitting in there doing their drugs and
That's right.
watching the program.
That's right.
What was the story there?
Bethany's video touched man. Can I say it as it is? Because people may not understand. Shooting up means injecting, and the man was injecting a vial of heroin. And these people, they're very wise. They don't pay for their satellite. They've got it all built into the attics or the place. And he started to cry. And that's because Bethany's video, "I Miss You, Daddy," was being shown.
Wow.
And he suddenly realised that his wife and two children, two little girls, he would probably never see again. But the girls understand Revelation. When the girls come to us, we
It's
show
a
them
peace that comes over.
it's the peace.
Because
reality.
all they've known is aggression and living off their own wits. And so when they come into a Christian environment, and then we have Revelation television on, and it's on all night. And that is a blessing to us. That is such a blessing. When you announced that Revelation television was going to go 24/7, it was such a blessing to us. And
Wow,
we just
thank
thought,
God.
this is so wonderful, because when the girls are detoxing, some of them are sleepers and some of them are walkers. And I'll explain that. The young girl that you were talking about that had been on this programme was a walker. And if it hadn't been for Revelation Television, the peace of God just poured into her. And she sat mesmerised, and she was going through what they call the rattle, which, as Keith has explained, they actually dread. And the pain of the heroin leaving her body is quite horrific, but the peace of God was there, and she didn't have that, that. So anyway,
But watching Revelation TV,
Christian television
Wow,
with Revelation Television is a blessing to us.
We've got
Revelation TV, folks, Revelation TV. That's what works for us. I'm not saying that we've got it right, but that's what works for us.
Thank
My
you.
friend Howard, my friend.
Lynn from Yorkshire is on the line, and we've got 30 seconds. Let's quickly take your call, Lynn. God bless you.
I just want to pray and just thank the Lord for Mary and Keith. I'd just like to say that I also had a very, very cold heart towards prostitutes. Sometimes because of what's been portrayed in the papers and things like that, about how they they prefer to go out and do this job. It's a better way for them to live. They wouldn't go and get a job, things like that. But we've got to get underneath that, and we've got to understand that these girls are hurt. They are hurting children. They are children that have been so abused. They are broken. And because of this, they have learned to survive on their own instincts. Often they're so troubled, they can't trust anybody.
That's right.
And the Lord has just shown me, He's given me a heart for them, and He's shown me how broken they are, and how mistrustful they are, and how they come over with this bravado that they're tough, that they're this, that they're that. But really, if you get underneath, you can see the heart, the broken heart. And what we need to do as Christians is come alongside them.
Right, Lynn, we're out of time, love, but thank you so much indeed.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, Lynn.
That's very kind of you.
Get behind Caring Hands, Keith and Mary. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. God bless you. See you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.